Okay, it's 2:00. That means it's meeting time. Showtime. Yes, thank you. Nice turnout today here in the room, which means there's a little bit smaller turnout online today, but that's okay. And it's October 21st, just like we planned. I don't know how that happened. Welcome. We have some new members this month. We have 2 new members, one of which is in the room today. Wyatt Mason has joined us today.
Did Wyatt get his new badge?
Say what, Fred?
Did Wyatt get his new name badge?
Of course.
Yay!
You made it up, so we want to make sure he got it. Wyatt's also joined us on Groups IO, so please don't say anything about him because he's there listening. Thank you for joining that, Wyatt. Appreciate it. If you need any help, ask us. I don't see any other visitors in the room today, but we have a couple we don't see. Well, yeah, a couple we don't see very often. Russell is here live today, which is always a treat. Robert Hoffman's here. We haven't seen him in a few weeks. Nice to see you, Robert. Who else did I see? Somebody else I saw.
I'm here.
Bob is here. Yeah, Bob Frankron. Nice to see you.
I see a name online that I don't recognize.
You do? Do we have any visitors, Rob Toller?
I don't see any.
All right.
Who is Ruby?
Rudy Lecandro is one of our newer members, K&I member. Doesn't usually join us. This might be his first time online.
Is that Dr. Lecondre?
Yes, Dr.
I
Lecandro.
coached his daughter in basketball at the model school.
You hear that, Rudy?
Bob
Frank Crone, coach your daughter.
Oh, yeah. That's one.
He's also doctor to the stars because he was Ed Brennan's personal doctor. Yeah.
It's a miracle he brought Ed back to life.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we should say thank you or not, Rudy, but that's a story for another time. Okay, sign in. Everybody signed in. I hope if you didn't, when we have the break in between after the meeting, but before the program starts, please sign in. We'd appreciate it. And minutes from the last meeting. Is it possible that we could have a motion that you could read the minutes from the last meeting online instead of having it here? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. By the way, my partner, Bob Dawson, as you see, is not here today. Bob has a Knights of Columbus function today. He needed to attend, so he's not with us. But Mike's remembering to write down the votes here. You got that last one, Mike?
I got it.
Okay. Well, let's just repeat it here for the recording.
The motion was presented by Stan White and seconded by Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Gotta take care of Bob. And treasurer's report, Mr. Mike Berry.
Okay.
Tell us about funds.
All right, for last month, on the expenses side, we have any questions? Yeah, Bob.
Where do we sign up for the Christmas party?
You can do it online and use your credit card. Or you can mail a check. Or you can give me a check today. That works. It's $15 a head. I don't turn down money. I'm the treasurer, okay? You know, we have preferred ways that we would like the money to move. It makes it easier for everybody if you use like a card. But I don't turn it down, okay? You got it, I'll take it, okay? So we'll just work it that way. But yeah, that's it. Any other questions?
To also answer Bob Johnson's question, if you need to get a Christmas party ticket, the link is in the pie card.
Yeah.
You say, I lost the pie card, I can't find it. Well, the archive editions of all pie cards back to, I'm not sure, 2006 or something like that are on the website. Not behind a firewall.
Yeah.
Easily accessible.
Without a password.
And of course, the November pie card will be out here in a few days and there'll be a new link.
Yeah. So there's page ad for the Christmas dinner has a QR code on it, thanks to Ron here, so. That's a preferred way, like I said, we will take it though. All right, I guess we need a motion then.
You done? You done?
Oh, so moved, excuse me, I'm sorry, yeah.
Mark Norman and Bob Frank Roan, second. Stay there, Mike.
All in favor?
Aye. Mike, yeah.
Aye.
You ready?
Aye.
Okay, you're back. Committee reports. Mike Berry, member welfare.
Member welfare for this month, been busier than we would like. See, my name's on there. I lost a brother 3 weeks ago. One of those situations where he's better off now. But yeah, that was why you see that. And then it has not been the best of places to be in the Lasher household the last month or so. It's Bonnie, his wife, has been in the hospital and of course home. You're doing better now. And Steve had an issue also. So those two folks for this month. And then here, probably the last of the bunch is Rick Geert's wife, Jeannie. Jeannie was in the hospital for a short period of time, back home now. Also sent her a gift card and get well card. So that's the list for this month. And like I always say, and what you see in the pie card each month, if you know of anybody who's had an issue, been in the hospital or worse, please let me know or one of the officers know, so we don't forget somebody, so we don't miss somebody. You know, we do this and we want to get well cards and sympathy cards and whatever we need to do to our members and their immediate families. So please let us know if you hear something. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. We do, before I switch slides here, I want to call to your attention that we do have some special action today on these next couple of slides. So everybody get ready. Barry, you want to come up? It's time for the contest and it's exciting. Steam.
Steam locomotives today. Oh boy. Actually, before we get started, we've got a couple folks here today who are previous winners in our contest. So I'd like to have them come forward and receive their certificates. Bob Frankron is here today and he won prototype railroad photography. So your certificate.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we also have Mark Norman, MMR, and he won prototype railroad photography. So congratulations, Mark. All right, now for steam locomotives, it's nice to know this late in life that steam locomotives still show up on our workbenches every once in a while. And we basically today, everybody's a winner because we had 3 entries. So everybody gets points. So for second place, we had a tie. So both second place folks will get their points for second place. And we have Rick Geertz, UP 462. And I think Rick's online today, so that's good. And then Rick Maloney with the Camelback, so work in progress. And we do welcome folks to enter works in progress, especially when it's this kind of interesting thing here. So congratulations to our 2 second place winners. And then for first place, I mean, goodness gracious, it's an Emma or a big Emma, as we call it. So yeah, it's Steve Lasher. And number 1954 with a really nice caboose falling up there. So Steve, I know you're online today. Congratulations for your first place steam locomotive there. And down the road, we'll give a certificate to you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you, gentlemen.
It's impressive.
Is that you, Russ?
What's that?
Kudos to whoever photographed that. Is that you?
It is.
Good job.
Good job, Russ.
Good job.
So easy peasy today. Next month, however, is going to be awesome. Oh, wow.
Show and tell,
Okay.
no scale locomotive.
Mhm.
My locomotive is 30 years old.
And it's Santa Fe, so it's got to be awesome.
The motor in that goes from one side of the firebox to the other side. of the
Wow.
firebox.
Okay, so it's got
Big
pulling power.
Pitman motor.
It can pull quite a bit. So yeah, take a look. And another thing we always invite people to do is to bring things to show on the table, whether or not it's in a contest. We love that. So next month's going to be a little more involved because we're doing our displays and people love getting their displays ready for November. So it could be a module. It could be a just a small display, or it could be a diorama. Any size, there's no size limit. So
So it can be a scene on your layout?
if it has previously been separate from the layout and then was added to the layout,
Okay.
if that makes sense to
Yes.
everybody. Right. So yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Good deal.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.
There'll be some slight, new instructions in the pie cards that you can read about when the contest comes out.
So just a comment on Rick Maloney's, I don't know if you can back up and go back to that. So some of you, we had a discussion before the meeting, that's an old Bachman,
From 89.
yeah, from 35 years ago, that a complete set sold for $50, like you remember Kmart's? You could get them there and
It's G gauge.
it's G gauge and it's incredible to see one still around and Rick working on it to make it something else.
You say it's incredible that Rick's still around?
Yeah.
Well, it's incredible. And another footnote, years ago, Bob Johnson took his Bachman Big Hauler was the name of it. And he entered it in a contest, I think it was at a convention, and Bachman was there to give an award to anybody who would do something with any one of their products. And Bob completely changed the look and feel. He made it look like a G-scale brass locomotive, and he won first place from Bachman in that contest.
The guys from Bachman didn't even recognize his own equipment.
Right, and I have one of those locomotives I bought for my daughter, who's now 37, it's on her second birthday, and I didn't recognize the locomotive as being the same thing.
Okay. Good information.
As advertised at last month's meeting and in the pie card, we were supposed to have Charlie Bogart here today to talk. Unfortunately, Charlie had a family commitment, and that time of that commitment changed. So Charlie regrettably had to say he couldn't do it today. I mean, I don't get it. You have family commitments over model railroading, but oh well. So
You might miss some of the construction if you went back that way, like $5, made a left turn, but kind of aimed it. Well, that's okay. We'll get there.
Rob, please take care of the mute on the online guests.
okay, there you go. We'll try to get Charlie very much wanted to do this, and so we'll try to get him January or February, whenever his time's free. So today, like it or not, you got me, which is why I'm here today. I had started on a CTC talk, and I just kind of finished it up this week. So I hope it goes over smoothly, and you'll enjoy it. So next month, our own Bruce the Mayor will be giving this talk about the why the whitefish, and he models Great Northern and everything, and he's been working on a new layout, and this is one of the scenes on it, so he's gonna be talking about that next month. So that should be rather interesting to hear the background and how he's incorporating that into his new layout.
Bruce, by the way, Bruce Demare is working on having an open house for his new N-scale layout, but the date hasn't been set yet. He was talking about trying to do it after the meeting next month in November, but that may not work out. But soon we'll be able to go to Bruce's home and see what he's been working on.
Yeah, and I think, Ron, what I gathered from Bruce's email to me, that he will not be having it next month, and I told him that's probably a good move, because after giving a talk, then he'd have to, rush home and, get everything ready for.
Get out the snacks.
Yes, the most important. Nobody cares about the layout, just what kind of snacks they have, right? Okay. But yeah, Bruce, at some later date, then he'd like to have all of us over and see what he's been doing.
That's it for Mr. Weiss.
Okay.
Thank you
that's it
so
for
much,
me.
Mr.
All
Weiss.
righty.
Always nice to see you in
Yeah,
person.
come back anytime.
It's in the program time, right? You're given the program, right?
Yeah.
So you're not totally.
Well,
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Okay, just a reminder, coming up in 3 weeks from today is our train show. So don't forget, you can get an advance ticket online, have more money to spend at the show. And if you have an advance ticket, you have a chance to win a $50 Roundhouse gift certificate. All you have to do is spend $6 and get back 50. And if nothing else, it's a nice little contribution to Division 8 to help us cover our expenses. Because as you know, we get no money from anyplace else except what we earn by having the train show. And of course, from time to time, members contribute to the Member Welfare Fund. So you can go online. There's a flyer on the main webpage where you can buy a ticket, or if you have a copy of this flyer, you can scan it with your phones. Everybody know how to scan the QR code here? We need to have a clinic on, oh, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss is a QR code man now. Great.
You just photograph it, right?
Yeah. Just take your phone, or sometimes you can have a special QR code app, and some of the new phones actually now have a separate dedicated reader to do nothing but that. Because sometimes your phone gets confused about whether you're trying to scan a PDF or a QR code or take a picture. So, but it's all available. And Mike mentioned the Christmas party, and as we talked about, the link to buy a ticket will be in the November pie card. It'll also start to be in the information update after the train show. We don't want to confuse you with having too many things to do all at once. So we're trying to get through the train show, and then we'll think about Christmas dinner after that. But don't wait too long, because there's only so many seats at the Christmas dinner table. Following dinner, there will be a presentation of the Silver Spike, as well as a brief program similar to what we did last year. But there is a back to basics.
Yes, I would like to say something. Ron, can you go back to the train show flyer real quick? Thank you. Hey, fellas, get up there and print out a couple copies of this. I kept a couple in my pickup truck, and if I ran by a Kroger's, if I ran by a Menards, of Home Depot that had a bulletin board, gee, I had something to post up there. I mean, take some flyers with you to work. You might get laughed at a little bit. Oh, you were playing with trains, but you'll be surprised. You'll get those. Hey, what's this all about? You know, what's going on? Advertise the show, fellas. We're not going to get people in there, new people and people that don't know about it. Advertise the show. Just print off 4 or 5 flyers and carry them with you, or have them in your truck or whatever car. So that you see a blank space and bulletin board, run out there and get a flyer and post it, and go from there. That's all I got to say.
Good suggestion. Thank you, Mark. Okay.
I guess that's me. Thanks, Ron. Let me change the spotlight here. Here we go. For those of you who don't know, I'm sitting in a hotel room today in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm attending the North Central Region Convention, representing the NMRA as the Central District Director, and I'm also managing the Zoom meeting from here as well. So just like usual, except I'm not sitting in the back of the room, I'm sitting in Fort Wayne, and initially I wasn't going to be able to do this, but we're going to make it happen. So let's go talk about this. This is Under the Rails, Part 3. It's a continuation of what we've been talking about before. Ron, next slide. So it's a continuation of what we've been talking about for several months, and there'll probably be a Part 4 to this as well. So go on. Couple disclaimers to talk about here. I'll let you read through this, but the bottom line is, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about ballasting. So we're not talking about the bench work or sub-row bed or any of that nonsense. We're talking about putting down ballast between the ties, and we're talking about some of the common solutions. But the bottom line here is, remember, it is your railroad. You decide what you want to do, and that's fine. So again, we've used this this diagram before from the UP out of their Common Standard book, and just remember, just reinforcing, this is the part of what we're talking about. We've talked about sub-road bed, we've talked about the track work and so forth before. This is what we're talking about. Next slide. Some things to consider. Availability. For what you want to put down as ballast, you've got to consider how available is this stuff that I want to use. There's some ballast that I used back when I was hand laying track in the early 1980s. That manufacturer of model railroad ballast is not around anymore. It's not available. So unless I want to shop a bunch of train shows and look for that stuff and dig, and not going to go there. Cost. Some is very expensive. Some is very expensive. Some is very easy to put down, but it might not look as realistic as you'd like it to. Here's another thing to consider. How close do you want to be with your model ballast to what your actual prototype railroad had on its track work? Is that important to you? It may or may not be important. And if you're running, a freelance railroad, then it's totally your railroad, and it doesn't matter what you use. Well, maybe not purple, and maybe not green, and maybe not bright blue or pink, but you get the idea. A standard ballast that's out there, you can pick whatever you wanted to and probably be okay with that. You got to look at the size. N-scale ballast does not work real well on a G-scale railroad, and definitely ballast that's designed for a G-scale railroad. Those rocks are going to look, that ballast is going to look like boulders, not little rocks between the ties. The texture, and there is a little bit with that. And then also consider, is the main line ballast the same as the branch line, as sidings, as industrial areas? Probably not. Go out and look at the real thing. Go look at the prototype and find out what it looked like in your era on your railroad. Again, if that's important to you. Sometimes it looks like grass and weeds and mud, and that's okay. All right, next slide. So let's look at some things that are out there. You could do nothing. I have seen plenty of railroads, and up here at this convention, I've seen a couple railroads where they didn't ballast. Now, in 2 cases, they didn't ballast because they haven't yet ballasted. They're going to get to it, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. You could pay. First thing I recommend is you paint the sub-row bed profile. So the cork, the homo bed, the Cotto track even, or if you're using something else such as Fleischmann, paint it some color that's going to be close to your ballast color, your final ballast color. If the final ballast doesn't cover every little micron of space, then guess what? What's showing through is not wood or homo bed. Instead, it's a color that is similar to the color of your actual model railroad ballast. In our case, we're putting down homo bed for the sub-row bed, and we're painting it shark gray. That's actually what it's called, shark skin gray. It's a cheap, inexpensive product that I found at Lowe's, and it works just fine for that. I'm not painting the bathroom with it. I'm not painting the kitchen with it. I'm not painting the outside of the house with it. It's going down on a home bed. It doesn't have to be high quality. It's a kind of a muted gray, and it works just fine. And in some cases, maybe what you want to do is only paint. And sometimes you can get away with that. On my T-Track module, that's all I did with the Cottle Track. I just painted it. Oh, well, then I weathered it and added some other stuff, a little bit of greenery to make it kind of look like weeds are growing up. But I didn't put any actual ballast rock down there. Scenery material, I mentioned that a minute ago. Maybe it's an industrial area or a class 3 railroad that ought to be a defunct railroad, no longer in service. So maybe it's just dirt, grass, weeds, and so on and so forth. You can do your own ballast, or you can buy some manufactured ballast. Next one. All right, manufactured ballast. Now, these are not the only things out there, but these are the more common things that you're going to find in the hobby shops or online today. And I know there are more, but these are the more common ones. There are some ballast scatter mats. The Europeans are famous for this. If you go out and look at a lot of European railroads or model railroads, you'll find that they actually have what they call ballast scatter mats. So it's a mat, if you will, very thin of scenery material, and it's ballast. And for large areas, such as parking lots or yards and so forth, it works really well. There's spongy stuff, ballast spongy stuff. It's an underlay that it rolls out. Very similar to what Woodland Scenics has for their sponge foam sub-road bed, but this actually has the ballast in it. And then Woodland Scenics, of course, probably the most readily available and most common that I find on the model railroads that I visit. Tom Gunther has had very good success with Woodland Scenics on his model railroad. He's sticking with it. He's not changing. I'm not using it. We did use it on the Pikeville layout, and it worked just fine, but I'm not a fan of it, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Scenic Express has a nice line, JTT scenery, part of model railroad, or excuse me, model rectifier, the same people who brought you those Tech 2 transformers. Superior Scenics, I hadn't heard of them before, but I stumbled into this on our trip to Dallas, actually our trip home from Dallas, when we were at Midwest Model Railroad just outside of Kansas City. I went, I hadn't seen that before. And then there's Arizona Rock and Mineral, which is pretty well known. A lot of people up here actually in the Fort Wayne area are using Arizona Rock and Mineral. Next slide. So this is my personal favorite, Arizona Rock and Ballast. Again, it is your railroad. You do what you want to do. When I go to the Arizona Rock and Ballast website, I find you can see that it is real rock that they have harvested from the wilds, from nature. They've crushed it in-house, and look at all the different options you have. Now, it's not different. You've got 4 different sizes, G, O, H, O, and N, and you have all these different options of colors of ballast inside of each of those scales. Next. The reason I like it is because unlike the Woodland Scenic stuff that is actually made out of crushed walnut shells, this is real rock, and it settles in a lot better in my mind when I'm laying it down trackside. Not that I can't use, because I have the Woodland Scenic stuff. I like the way it works better. So I'm going to talk about it a little more than the others. Nothing, however, exactly matches the color I want, and I'm trying to match, for the most part, what the SP was using in the 80s. Even though the Santa Cruz and Felton is no longer an SP line, the ballast was laid down last by the SP, and now it's being updated by Santa Cruz and Felton. You know what? They're buying their ballast from the same guys that are selling the SP, so it's going to be the same stuff anyway. The HO scale ballast, in my mind, does need some filler, although it's good to go. And in-scale stuff is too small to be used alone. So I have, next slide. So I have a special blend, if you will, of ballast that I make at home. I use 2 parts of the CSX Southern Pacific to 1 part of Pennsylvania Gray in HO, and I also use 2 parts N scale and 1 CSX Southern Pacific and 1 part Pennsylvania Gray N scale, and I blend that all together, just mix it, and that's what goes trackside. Just about everybody that's come in and taken a look at the ballasting that I've done, especially on the Great Loop, has gone, yep, that looks pretty good, and I'm happy with it, and I think that's more important than anything else. Next slide, Ron. Except for the Mount Cloud River Railroad part of the layout. The Cloud is different. Next slide. the McLeod actually mined their own ballast from a quarry that they had on the property. Now, it wasn't here in McLeod, it was out on the line, but it is red lava rock. So they actually mined it, they crushed it, ground it up, and that's what was distributed along the line. So on this trip that Barbara and I made more than 10 years, no, just about 10 years ago, we were at the McLeod shops, talked to the people who were working there. They said we could take pictures of anything, we could climb on anything. We did a lot of that. And then I said, you know, is it possible to take a little bit of this ballast? And they're like, yeah, sure, take as much as you want. They didn't care. So we have a couple pounds of that came back with us in our baggage. I'm not sure what TSA thought of that when it went through the security scans, but we have a couple pounds of this red log that we will eventually grind up and use as ballast. And I know there are ways to get it. I know there are ways I could buy it, but it's just the idea that we got actual gravel, you know, actual ballast from there, and we're going to grind it up and use it on that part of the model railroad that I think is kind of cool. And I know other people that do that as well. All right, next slide. And if you think I'm crazy for doing this, this blending thing, this is at one of the layouts that I visited yesterday, believe it or not. This is what this guy on this Alan Bell, actually, with this New York Central layout, I showed some pictures of earlier, he's hand laying all of his track. The only track he's not hand laying is the Code 83 Flex track in staging. But he's doing all the turnouts, all the crossovers, all the double slit switches, everything that you see is scratch built in place without using the fast track solution. And he has his own special blend of New York Central ballast mix, and this is actually, and then cinders as well for the yards and so forth. And he's using Arizona ballast at all as well. And he said, you know, it's a good thing I got it because Arizona ballast is out of business. I went, well, not exactly. The person who owned it is no longer managing it, but the family is managing the business, and they're coming back online. So if you go out there and the website's a little funky, give it a little bit of time, go back to it, and it'll work just fine. But he opened the curtains and showed me how much ballast he has. I think he's got enough to do his railroad 3 times over, and probably mine as well. All right, next slide, Ron. So one of the interesting things about this New York Central Railroad is his sub-road bed. And I know we've already talked about sub-road bed, but I wanted to talk about this because this is very unique. This is actually wood profile that he is using for his sub-road bed. You're going, wood profile? Yeah, wood profile. It's kind of a crazy thing, but it's working for him. It is not what you would expect. It is a special type of wood that is unfortunately not very available in the U.S. anymore, but it was, what was the name of that wood? Obeche, O-B-E-C-H-E. And you can see the profile here. So he got sheets of this stuff from a local hardware store, and I looked, and you have to special order it now, and it's crazy expensive. So it wouldn't make sense to do it anymore, but it's kind of it's a hardwood that's kind of soft. It's about probably half to 2/3 as hard as as a pine. So the neat thing is, because he's hand laying, he can spike directly into this. And that's one of the reasons, of course, why Russ and I use HomoBed, because you can spike into it and into the HomoBed, and it will hold that. All right, next slide. Quick wrap up here before we go to break. Use the ballasting solution that works for you. We've talked about a few things that are available. I'm not dismissing any of them. It's whatever works for you. I know it works for me, and that's why I talked about it the most. I'm happy with it. I don't expect you to do what I'm doing. I expect you to figure out what works for you and do that. The solution I'm using on our railroad is not the first thing I did. I've gone through several different solutions, but I'm happy with this. It works for me. That's where we're going. But you can do nothing. I hope you don't just do nothing. I hope you at least paint and weather the sub-road bed profile. And I do hope you do paint that sub-road bed and then put some type of scenery on there along with some actual ballast, whether it's do it yourself or manufactured ballast, or again, if it's just painted. And Ron, this should be my next slide, should be the last slide. Oh yeah, ballasting your model railroad track for, there is a part 4 coming. I'm going to talk about how I ballast my track and how I lay that down with glue and detergent and isopropyl alcohol and misters and all sorts of other stuff. It'll be another quick one. That's it. All right, last slide should be just a closing slide, and that's it. Thank you, guys. That's what I got. Any questions?
Yeah, Fred,
Russ?
not ballasting, but the New York Central with the wood sub road bed, how does he do the curves?
Oh, I forgot to say that. It actually came in sheets, like you would buy, any sheet lumber, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood. He marked it out on there just as you and I would for sub road bed, Russ, the plywood that you and I would do for 3/4 inch stuff. And then to get the bevel, jigsaw.
Guy's
Okay.
got a lot of time on his hands. I love it.
Well, I tell you what, it took him 15 years to get to the point where he is. Okay.
All right, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's time for the break. 5 minutes. Barb's got the timer going.